Okay, well, hello and welcome. This session is sponsored by Logically. Logically is the leading managed IT service provider to small and mid-sized organizations. We take care of your information technology so you can take care of business. Since 1999, we have made IT management easy and secure for hundreds of corporations, healthcare organizations, nonprofits, and public sector agencies. We set the standard for responsiveness and operational excellence for organizations seeking to augment existing IT teams or outsource IT completely. Thank you for coming and enjoy the session. You're on mute, Darren.
Maybe if I unmuted myself. Yep. Webinar 101. All right, the numbers keep creaking up, so I'm just going to wait a few more seconds, but I'm glad you guys made it. This is one of the first times we've ever really taught a instructional course on programming in NCLGISA, or at least web-based programming. Some of the courses that I've taken over the years at NCLGISA, the ones that benefit me the most are the ones that are giving me some hands-on instruction on how to actually accomplish something. And so that's why I really wanted to teach this class. If you've ever seen me before, I've taught a bunch of classes on WordPress, which absolutely has some programming in it. And then I've taught a couple classes on chatbots where we've done a little bit of programming. But programming is what I do. It is all web-based programming that I'm doing. A whole lot of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP with a bunch of MySQL in there. And it is just something I enjoy doing. So we're going to do a fairly basic introduction course to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There was one place where it actually said PHP also, which I can cover, and it's what I love. But we were going to try to stick to just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But we'll get to the end. If we have some time, I'll do it for sure. Because PHP is a whole heck of a lot of fun. All right, well, the numbers seem to have leveled off around 22, so we're going to get rocking and rolling. The programming languages we're working with today, these are the three that we're going to talk about. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. You don't need to know what it stands for. You do need to understand that it is technically not a programming language. It is a language, and you do stuff with it, but it's one of those things where if you know, you know. If you say that HTML is a programming language that you know, somebody who knows what they're talking about is going to be like, well, no, it's not a programming language. CSS, same thing. It is absolutely a language. It allows you to do a lot of stuff, but it is not a programming language. JavaScript is. It is actually a programming language. You can do calculations with it, a lot of manipulation. It definitely is a programming language. It is probably one of the most common programming languages out there because it integrates with every browser anywhere. It is a language that runs inside of a browser, and everybody uses a browser to access the web. So if the back end of your website is anything, PHP, if it's WordPress, if it's Python, anything on the back end, when you're displaying on the front end, JavaScript can do stuff with it. So it's ubiquitous. It's all over the place. HTML, you know, back in the mid 90s, if anybody remembers, the web took off, and the huge advantage was you can then read something, you can click on something, and it would take you somewhere else. And that concept, it was amazing. It was right around 95 or so. At least that's what I remember when that stuff really started taking off. CSS, cascading style sheets, it defines what HTML should look like. So your HTML is your backbone, your skeleton of your website, and then CSS makes it look pretty. JavaScript, once you have that HTML and you have that CSS written and it's inside the browser, JavaScript will then allow you to do stuff with it, to make things bigger, smaller, open, close, slide around, speak to a server on the back end through this secret little magic door portal. And JavaScript can actually create an entire web page all on its own. So your website can actually have 0 HTML in it, and then JavaScript can create all the HTML. So it's pretty powerful language. So we're going to get into a few examples here. The way the class is going to go today is I've got a couple of brief examples. I've only got 5 or 6 more slides to explain a few things about it. And then we're going to go right into some live coding, and we're going to do some HTML. Then we're going to add some CSS on it. Then we're going to add some JavaScript. And then I'm going to show you how to hack into other websites and manipulate their website. And so we'll use our conference website. It'll provide for some great examples. If you have questions, please ask them in the question and answer. I do not see the question and answer thing popping up somewhere, but I am sure it exists. So hopefully Chihan will help me figure that part out. So HTML, mid-90s, they came out with stuff. So instead of just having plain ordinary text, you can make stuff bigger and bolder, and you can have links on it. And this came right from one of our city websites, and it makes it look pretty. And that's all HTML does. It makes something look pretty. And then when you add some CSS on top of the HTML, well, now you can make it really pretty. You can add backgrounds, you can add shading, you can add fancy lines, you can put background color as well as border color. So this particular square in the middle, a rectangle, has a border on it, but a border is only on part of it. So all using CSS, you can manipulate how something looks. It's extremely powerful. So today's goal, what we plan on doing today is to understand the difference and the relationship between these three languages. And you can say languages, you just can't call them all programming languages. So there's a relationship. CSS is something you're doing on the HTML. JavaScript is something you're doing on the HTML. And so you'll hopefully understand the relationship and how each one is different to all come together. Because as you add CSS, your site's going to look a lot better. As you add a little JavaScript, well, now things are going to be looking even cooler. We're going to hack a website. It's not really hacking it, but it is. It's kind of neat. Once you learn it, it's going to be something you're going to really enjoy, or you can be like, well, I don't care, I'm never going to use that. But it's kind of neat. So I'm hoping you have just enough knowledge to go back and try some stuff on your own. You know, I wish 20 years ago, somebody would have pulled me aside and just taught me a few of these basics. And it really would have helped. I've done a lot of websites back in the 90s, and I really wish I knew some more of it as it was getting going. But it was neat. I remember writing websites. First one I wrote with things in 97 or so, and then 98, 99, 2000, I ended up writing quite a bit. So we're going to get into doing some coding, but you've got to understand something. Every single thing I'm about to show you, there are other ways of accomplishing it. So you're going to say, well, no, that doesn't work, or I've heard you do it better. Oh, absolutely. If I showed you all the different ways to accomplish a task, I mean, you'd walk out of your way too confused. I mean, there's no way you'd be able to comprehend it all. So there are multiple ways of doing it. I'm going to pick one that I think is just an easier way. And some of them you're going to look at, and if you know JavaScript, you're going to go, well, Darren, that's inefficient. That doesn't work. Well, I know that. But it may be easier to explain it or for demonstration purposes. So I just want you to be aware of that. And so we're going to jump into some coding now. And that is it for the PowerPoint. Who needs PowerPoint anymore? So you guys should be seeing my screen. You should see a browser on the right side. You should see some code on the back end here. So the code that I'm going to be writing in, I'm using Notepad++. Great editor. You can use Notepad. You absolutely can use Notepad. So the advantage of using an editor like this is it color codes things. It organizes things a little bit better, and it actually can provide you assistance when writing out commands. So this right here is the basic thing that you will need to write any web page in HTML. And of course, this is the proper way to do it. You can absolutely, so let's see, so if I type hello world and I save it and then I refresh my browser, of course I see hello world. HTML typo is forgiving. I could actually make an HTML file that looks just like this and refresh it, and it's going to work fine. Now, this is not correct, and it's not valid, but it will work. But it's not what you want to do. You always want to try to do things the right way, or at least as close as possible to the right way to get things done. All right, Chihan, am I missing where the question and answers stuff are? Are you looking at those?
I can feed them to you afterwards.
I see where they are.
You see them?
Excellent.
All right.
Hopefully more in the future. Wonderful. Me too. I could do these all day long. So the neat thing about programming is it will do exactly what you tell it to do. So some of you are looking at this and know what's going to happen. Some of you are going to have no clue. So it typed hello, it typed world, it typed Darren, it typed Growski, but I'm putting them on different lines here. Well, HTML, it's interpreting it exactly what you tell it to do. So if I don't tell it to go to a new line, it's never going to go there. So there's multiple ways of doing that. The simplest one is BR. It stands for line break. So if I refresh that and do that, great, now I'm on a new line. And so if I take this and I repeat this 5 or 6 times, guess what's going to happen? It's going to repeat it 5 or 6 times on the website. So BR is something you can do to absolutely separate some stuff. So we're going to get some information here. I'm going to copy a little bit of information that I had from somewhere else, which came from the NCLGISA's website. And I'm just going to put it all back here. And so I've got a line with 2 breaks, another line, some sentences, another break, and so on. So I'm going to put in what is called the horizontal rule. And that HR is going to provide me some delineation so you can see where I'm working. So this is right off the NCLGISA website. It's got information, but it looks horrible. So I could space it out by putting in 2 of these, just like I did on the first one. And so I can do that, and now I've spaced the stuff out. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to teach you something that's called a div. They're everywhere. So all over every website are divs. Now, what I'm going to do is also indent this. It just makes it easier to read. It does not do anything to the output. It just makes it more legible. So I'm going to make a div here, and I'm going to close my div. So it's an opening div and a closing div with that slash. So we're going to take this and we're going to put it in there, and I'm going to do that just to make it readable. So not much has changed. I have this on one line. I have this on the other line. This stuff is still there. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in a div. I'm going to take all, whoops, sorry for that. Didn't mean to jump around on the screen. There we go. So I'm spacing it out just visually so we can see things. And then we're going to get rid of one of these. Let me put the other one back in. So we're going to get rid of that. There. So now I have each paragraph separated into a div. They're still butted up against each other because all the div does is move it down one line. So within HTML, there's some neat things we can do. If I want to make this bold, there's a command called B for bold. So I start the B, I then have to end the B with that little slash. So I'm going to refresh, and now my item is going to be in bold. So you can write it like this, no problem. What makes it cleaner is if you do this. So it allows you to visually see where things start and where things end. So I'm going to do the same thing here, but I'm going to use an I. So the I is italics. So there's some real basic HTML you can learn, and some real basic formatting you can learn that is bold and italics. And then for this one, we'll mix it up a little bit, and we're going to use a U, which I am sure you guys can figure out stands for underline. But I'm going to go even trickier, and I'm going to put an I, and then I'm going to end the I. So I open my U, I close my U, I open my I, close my I, which means everything in here will be both underlined and italicized. So to make it a little bit more readable, I can do this. So there's a lot of indentions that come into play. So if you look at this text right here, you'll see as each part indents, it helps you figure out where things start and end. And another great advantage of using an editor like this is when I click on an element, it shows me where the ending element is. So visually, it's very easy for me to understand what I'm doing. So I'll refresh. Nothing's going to change yet. All I did was change how it looked in my code. Awesome. All right. So the next two really cool things with World Wide Web are images and links. So we're going to take this right here and we're going to turn this into a link. So to make it a link, you may have heard of these before. It's an A. So I open an A tag and end an A tag. Now this isn't going to do anything. I haven't given enough information. So we call it an href, and this is where we want it to go. So you can put in any address in the whole world here. And now this word right here, Fall 2020, is now turned into a link. So by default, most browsers underline it and turn it blue and make my mouse turn into a little pointing finger. This is all done in CSS. They're just predefining it for you. So they're saying, listen, if you're going to make a link, we're going to apply the CSS to it. We're going to give it an underline. We're going to make it blue, and we're going to make the mouse into a little pointer. But as you learn, you can change every bit of that. You can say, well, I don't want my links to be underlined. Well, we'll show you in a minute. You don't have to have them underlined. So now everything between this A and this A is going to be that link. So if I click on it, I'm going to open in a new tab. I go to Google. So if I wanted to make this bold, I can make that bold. Now I'm using my indentions here. So now the Fall 2020 is going to be bold, and this is going to be regular inside that link. And this looks a little funny. And to make it readable, you might actually want to do this and leave it that way, because then you can sort of see, oh, okay, I'm going to start B, a bold, and then I'm going to end bold, and then I'm going to continue as normal. And it's a language. If you want to make one letter italicized, why not? I mean, you can do whatever the heck you want. And so what I need for you to understand here is that you have simple commands like the B and the I and the U, and all you have to do is wrap them around something, and things are going to display. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in another HR line here. I'm just going to scroll down the page a little bit. So if I save this, we're now going to be in a new section. And now I want to put an image. So an image tag looks like this. There we go. Okay, so an image tag looks like this, and it's an IMG, and then I need to tell it where that image is. So I've got an image in here called Jiffy GIF. Okay, so this little Jiffy GIF image is a cute little animation to help you understand the difference. So HTML is like your background, your backbones. It's the structure of your document. When you add CSS to it, well, we get to add color, we get to add flash, we get to add a little pizzazz to it. And then JavaScript, well, we can make things move and interact and do some really neat things. So another image that I have on here is this one. Okay, and there's a logo. Well, Darren, it's huge. Yeah, well, because we didn't give it any other information. We didn't tell it, hey, I want you to be smaller. So you can actually do this. Sorry. And that image is going to then be smaller. There it is. And now the image is going to be smaller. It's not the best way to do it, but you can. You can absolutely throw a width in there. You can throw a height in there. Let's see if that one works. And it's horrible. It looks hideous because it doesn't know enough to say, well, listen, if the height's going to be 22, I don't want you to distort it. And so this is not the best way to manipulate images. So CSS is the best for that. So I'm going to take these two things out and refresh the page, and we're going to get that great big giant image again, which is just fine. Alrighty. So that's HTML in a nutshell. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to start going into some CSS, and I'm going to show you something right here. So in order to use CSS, something has to have a class. It's class is called, it can be called anything, but everything that you want to be able to manipulate needs to have a class. Now I say that, not everything does, but for all intents and purposes it does. So I'm going to call this a section, okay? So I'm going to copy that because I'm going to rewrite that one with section, that one with a section, and that one with a section. So each one of my divs, I now have given something called a class called session. If I refresh over here, nothing is going to change. This is code for me to use on the back end that I'm going to show you in a moment. Nothing changed over here. So for instance, the first thing I want to do is I want to add some spacing between this line and this line, all of this. So as you learned before, you could throw a couple BRs in there. Not the most efficient way to do it all. So we're going to dive right into some CSS. So I've got a CSS file here. So I'm going to actually show you, you're going to see both files. So this is my HTML right here in the middle. And then this is going to be CSS. Now, in order to include that CSS, I have to actually tell the HTML that, listen, I'm giving you an external file that is CSS that I need you to use. So inside your head of your document, you have to put in this command that says, listen, I'm going to give you a style sheet. It's type CSS, and this is the actual location of it. So this right here is the location. You do not need to memorize this. You're going to copy and paste it from somewhere, and you never need to look at it again. It's there. It's going to do its job. You don't need to memorize it. Copy and paste it, put it in. So a lot of websites are actually going to have multiple lines like this to handle a whole variety of things. So I'm going to save this, and of course, nothing is going to happen. I have not done anything to my CSS file. So the first thing I want to do is say, well, I want to do something. So I need to tell CSS, well, what do you want to do something to? Okay, well, I came up with this class called section. So the way you do CSS is you put a period and then the name of your class. Open curly brace, close curly brace. That tells the CSS, hey, listen, whatever I put in here, I need you to do this to everything on the website that has a class of section. So for a visual effect, I'm going to change the background color. I'm going to make it red. Now, there are hundreds of commands in CSS. Can't memorize them all. I don't memorize them all. There's going to be a few that you'll learn that you'll get used to. So I'm going to say background red. I'm going to refresh this. And when I load this page, everything that was a section, this section, is now a background of red. Well, great. So that's a nice visual. The next CSS that's very common is margin. And there's different ways to do this. I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm just going to write one number. So anything that has to do with sizes on the web has to be written in some notation. It's just like meters, millimeters, kilometers. You have size things. I'm going to mention a few of them, but it's going to confuse you. There are pixels. There are ems. There is something called viewport height. There is something you could do percentage. You could do rem. All of these things mean something slightly different. They're just going to confuse you right now. So you write what the CSS is, you give it a number, you end it with a semicolon. Save that, refresh this. And now each one of these things has a 20 pixel margin above it, to the left, below it, and to the right over here. If I wanted to only change the top or the bottom, I can add this. I can say margin top 20. So now when I refresh this, let's get this back there so you can see it. So now there's a margin on the top, but nothing on the left, nothing on the right. Well, this is fine. I've created some separation in here. That's sort of what I wanted to do. Now, I don't want the background red anymore. That was really just for a visual effect. But what I do want is I want to put some padding. So padding is on the inside. Actually, I'm going to bring red back in because it's going to show you this. So the padding is not on the outside, but padding is on the inside. So inside the red, there's going to be some padding now. So that inside this red box, the padding on the left, the top, and the bottom. See that right there? So margin does the outsides, padding does the inside. And then you just keep going. You start creating a whole bunch more things, get things really exciting, add some neat stuff to it. So color is your text color. So I'm going to say 6 Fs, which is a hex code. You could write 3 Fs, or you could write the word white. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to refresh that. And now I have white text in a red background. Pretty cool? Hopefully. So to demonstrate some neat ways CSS can be used, I'm going to copy in some code that I wrote earlier. I'm going to put it, we're going to put it right here. And I'm going to, we have this red text here. We'll leave that there. So this right here is the code that I just put in. So this is my family. I opened the div, closed the div. Inside the div, I have something called parents. I have another div called kids. Inside this div, I have a div that has my name in it, class of parent, another div with my wife's name, a class of parent, and so on. So this will only output just like this. All I'm telling it to do is Darren, go to new line, put Lee, new line, put Ashley, and new line, put Noah. There is no CSS styling on this, which is why it looks like plain ordinary text. But because each of these have classes, I could do really cool things. So family, I'm going to make a class called family into my CSS, and I want this to be separated a little bit. So I'm going to put a border. So this notation right here, it takes a little while to get to used to. You have to know that, oh, when you're doing a border, you have to give it a border width. You have to say what kind of border, and you have to give it a border color. And so memorizing exactly how those laid out is sometimes a little bit tricky. But what you're going to do is you'll find it somewhere. You're going to go read online. You're going to learn it. Then you're going to copy it. And I'm going to show you how you can learn from it. I'm going to show you how you can tweak it and see in real time what it's actually doing. So for now, just know that I'm putting a border around it. If I want the border to be a different color, so I'll make the border a different color. It's a shade of blue. I'll show you that later. So then I want some margin around it. I don't want anybody near my family. Let's refresh and load that. So now I have some margin around it here, and I have a blue box around my family. Well, we don't look very good in there. So I would like for my parents, so anything that's inside parents, I want you to have another margin below it of 40 pixels. So that is going to take everything below parents, and it's going to add 40 pixel margin. So it's going to push the children down. So to help visualize that, I'm going to add a border. I'm going to add a border around parents, and then I'm going to add a border around kids. This is just, I'm doing a lot of copying and pasting here. This is just to help you visualize where things are. So let's go ahead and get those borders around them. So now I've got the red border around the parents, blue border around the children. So now I can see that I've got the margin on the bottom. That's what's pushing these guys down. So then what I want to do is, well, the parents are really important. So I want to say, if you're a parent, I want you to be big. So the command for font size is font-size, and you'll learn that. And man, we're going to make these guys 40 pixels big. Awesome. So now the parents are nice and big. And then, well, I want the children, they can be big too, but they're not going to be as big. So they're going to be some 16 pixels. Okay. That didn't change at all. I either made a typo or didn't do something right. There we go. It was already 16. So now I made my kids a little bit bigger. And so now I can continue to manipulate them, but I'm going to pause there for a moment because I'm going to add another family. So right below this family, if I click here, I can see it ends right here. And this blank line might be confusing us, so let's get rid of that. Now I have another family. So this family starts here, ends here. This family starts here, ends here. Each of these families have the exact same classes, which means that exact same styling is going to now get applied to every one of them. So as I manipulate the styles and the colors of my families, it doesn't matter if I have one family or 1,000 families, they're all going to get styled the exact same. So that concept right there is really the key to CSS. Just know that if you have a style, if you have a class and you style that class up, for instance, parents, everything on your page that has the class of parents, this one here, is going to be styled the same. And so you can go through and make one change and it'll affect everything on the page, which is great. It's what we want. Well, that's it. There they are. So I can do some other cool stuff. If I do stuff specifically inside here, when I put in her middle name here, that's just HTML. I can add her middle name there and it puts it there. I'm not doing any actual styling on that. If I wanted to, okay, so here's where it gets fun. So I have a family here and a family here, but each family has a different ID. So this command ID, inside our div, we have a class, we have an ID. We have a class, we have an ID. Classes can duplicate all over the place. IDs have to be unique. I cannot have another div on the page that shares the same ID. You can put it there, but it's not going to behave properly. So IDs are singular. But the beautiful thing about that is if I wanted to target all kids in this family, I can do that. Now keep in mind, I have 2 families here, but you can have 1,000. So an ID is designated with a hashtag, $, whatever it is you're using. So I want to say, listen, if you're ID Gorowski and you're a kid, so I'm going to put a space and a kid, open and close. So you just need to understand that you target some ID, something unique, and then every kid that is a literal and metaphor child of Gorowski. So this one and this one, I'm going to do something with. So I want, let's say, their font weight to be bold. I want them to have yellow text, which is going to look really bad. I'm going to save that and refresh. So now only the kid who was underneath Gorowski is going to be colored yellow. So that concept right there is everything you need to know about CSS. You have classes that can be all over the place. You can have IDs, which are 1. And in CSS, you can go through and target all of them, one of them, some of them, through a variety of means. And that's CSS in a nutshell. The ability to target multiple things. Pretty cool? Maybe. Hopefully some of you are learning something. If you know all this stuff, that's great. I knew CSS for the longest time before I understood this concept right here. It was always foreign to me. I didn't understand why they were writing classes next to an ID, but it's before the curly brace. It was a little confusing. And so if you understand that concept, you're gonna be great. There's a bunch of other things you can do here to really tweak some stuff. I don't want to get into that. It makes it a little confusing. But now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to edit this stuff live, because this yellow looks horrible. And I don't know how much margin I should put around that. So I'm going to make my screen a little smaller. We're gonna look at the CSS. And I'm gonna open up what's called the Inspect tab. If you guys have ever done this, it's extremely cool. Right click anywhere on a page, doesn't matter where you are. Right click on a page and go to Inspect. It's going to open up this window over here. Now, the window could be on the bottom, the window can be on the left. You can go in and you can manipulate where that window is. But this is what the browser is interpreting my code as. And as I mouse over them, you can see where stuff is. So this is the browser saying, oh, okay, great. You have right here, a parent, Darren, which is underneath parents. So you see, as I mouse over those, it highlights what I'm doing. And there's my entire family. But because I have all these classes in here, I can manipulate this stuff. So you have this other window down here. Size this up just right. So I'm going to right click on Darren and inspect, and it's going to jump down to that spot. So Darren is of a class called parent. And right down here, I have a parent, and it's font size 40, which is exactly what I have over here. So I'm not sure what size I want to make these people. So I'm just going to click here, and now I'm going to use the arrow keys up and down. As I go up and down, it changes in real time. So I'm going to say, well, you know what? I kind of like it about 60. I think 60 looks really good. Now, this is a whole nother concept. You are manipulating the page that's in this browser. You are not manipulating the code. The code is over here and hasn't changed at all. If I were to refresh this page, it's going to revert right back to that code. If you understand that concept, great, you're golden. But I like 60, so I want to make it 60. But you know what? Let me find this over here. So if I'm looking for this Ashley Noah, I could go over here and try to find it. But what I recommend you doing is don't worry about that. Right click here and inspect. It's going to jump right to it. There it is. So my kid is color yellow, font weight bold. So this is where the inspect gets really fun. I'm going to click on this yellow thing, and it's going to open up one of these things. I slide around, pick any color I want. I kind of like that blue, whatever that number is, right? Save it. And now they're a blue. And you know what? I really like that color. I want to keep it. So I'm just going to copy that color. I'm going to go over here to kid, and I'm going to put in that color. So now when I refresh the page, of course, that color is locked in. So you can manipulate the colors in real time to figure out what it is you like. So I made if you notice, I made a border over here that says double, but it doesn't look double. Well, it's because I didn't make it big enough yet. So I'm going to go to kids. Okay. So I'm on the kids. And if you can see right here, I made the border 1 pixel wide, style double with this color. So just like before, I can go in here, tweak the color a little bit, and we're going to make it a nice gray. Sure. And now I'm going to mouse over this and click right there. I'm going to use the same up and down arrow key. All I'm doing is by doing the up arrow key, you're seeing that double where the double comes in now. It's going to be double, but they're going to be 33 pixels wide. Well, that's a little crazy. So let's go down to like, say, 5. Well, I think 5 kind of looks pretty good. So I'm going to put a 5 over here. Okay, this does not look good at all. I hope you guys understand that. This is a horrendous looking page. I want you to see how you can manipulate stuff though. And hopefully you understand that concept. So I'm going to save that, refresh over here. And now I have the blue double border. Well, that doesn't look that great, but what about this red? I'm going to right click in the red, go to inspect, and my panel on the right is going to jump to that section right here. And the classes section, I can look right here. Here's what's being done to it. Well, I don't like that red. So let's click here. Let's make it a nice light gray background like that. So F7, 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 right? So we're going to do that. We're going to change that to be F7, F7, F7. But the color looks really bad now because you can't have a light color on a light background. So I'm going to go here to color and say, well, let's see. Well, that looks good. Let's make it a dark, deep red. Sure. So I'm going to take that color and we're going to make over here. Sorry, I put those in the wrong place. So F7, 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 and the color is going to be that. I'm going to refresh the page. And now that stays that way. Looks horrible, but you can now understand the relationship of how you can manipulate stuff in real time. Makes sense? Man, I wish I can get some feedback. Hopefully it's all making perfect sense, but now we're going to have a little bit of fun. So we're now going to go to, let's go to the event. Okay, so we're going to go here to the lobby, and I want to look at this. I want to see how in the world did they build this? How are they doing this? And this is a little fun. Sometimes it's a little scary because you're like, well, geez, was it really that simple or was it really that hard? Well, I'm not sure. Now, this website was downloaded from the internet onto my computer and exists only in my browser. So if I make any changes to this, it is not going to affect the real site in any way, shape, or form. So let me put this in here. And now here's all the same stuff. I'm going to clean up this section a little bit so it's easier for us to see. And as you see, as I move around here, you can see everything highlighting. So this right here, I'm going to right click, inspect. This right here is an A, which means it's a link, right? It's going to go somewhere. They gave it a class of menu. Where it's going is right here. So their A is identical to my A that I made previously, right here. I didn't give mine a class, but I could have, because you can give a class to anything. So their A and their is inside this element. So if I look down here, this is how they're styling it. They're making it color, making it white. Font, they're giving this, and font weight, they're doing this. Well, I don't like that font weight. So I'm going to put in a new font weight and call it, put in 100. Okay, so sometimes this happens. I'll try to explain that a little bit later. But so now the font weight is 100. So if you see that, it's totally different. I can manipulate it, do whatever I want. So this right here, let's take a look at this logo. So when I inspect this logo, it's an image tag, exactly like the one that I created earlier. It has an IMG, has a source, and then it has this image. And they actually put a width in there. So it is just like the example I gave. So this source right here, so a lot of times when you're looking for a logo and you want to copy the logo from somebody's website, if I just copy this text and paste it in somewhere, it's just a URL. It's going to go and show that logo. So a website takes an image and they place it inside an image tag and it's going to show up right there. Well, if you look down here, this right here, so they're saying, listen, if you're an image that has a class of event logo, that's in a lobby, that's in trade show. So it's their hierarchy. You don't have to memorize their hierarchy, but understand that, look, now you can see how they're doing stuff. So there's all sorts of CSS commands, right? We've talked about font weight and color and background color. There's a lot that you have to need to learn, but we just need to experiment with the ones that we have right there. So right here, it says max width 195. Well, what do you think is going to happen when I click in there and I start using the down arrow key? It's changing the maximum width because the CSS says, listen, your max width is going to be 131 pixels no matter what. And so there it is. So I can continue to shrink that down if I want. So I can mess with everything that they have going on here. Well, I like this. I want to know how they made this little home icon. Well, let's take a look at it. Right click on it, go to inspect, and I can see right here that it's a glyph icon. Now you don't know what glyph icons in, you'll learn about them. It's a way you can make cute little shapes. Well, if you look at it right here, this is where they've colored it and they've colored it gray. Well, I want to change the color. So I want the color to be blue. Now, if you look right here, that color is blue. I didn't change it for your website. I didn't change it for their server. I only changed it for what I'm looking at now. So the advantage of doing this is you can manipulate things in real time to see how it would affect something. Their link inside here, right here, they have color red. Well, why can't I do this? Make it green. And now you see all those links up there are a nice green. So it's pretty cool. You can absolutely hack everything in there. So one hack that I cover, I'm going to refresh the page. It's going to reset everything. So one thing that I like, I got to get into JavaScript. I'm getting ahead of myself. Look at that. Getting way ahead of myself. All right, we're going to go back here. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go way up here. We're going to put another HR. And we're going to JavaScript here. We refresh my page. And there's my stuff right there. Now, to clean things up a little bit, I'm going to delete these. It's just taking up a lot of space on the page and makes it hard to see. But now I have down here, and I can't scroll down anymore. Well, because the web page ends right there. So I could do this, add a bunch of fake line breaks. It allows me to scroll the page and allow you to see it. This is not ideal. It's not what we want, but it works. There's loads. I could have done this in CSS multiple ways. All right. So now here's where some cool JavaScript comes in. All righty. So JavaScript is going to allow us to manipulate stuff that's on the page. So a very common example of something like this is this, right? So this is a text element. Put my quotes around it. Okay, this is on the internet everywhere. It's an input form. You've done this 1,000 times. So I'm going to do 2 of them. And I'm going to say, actually, I'm not going to do 2 of them yet. I'm going to say price is $5. We'll put a line break. And I'm going to say quantity is 10. I'm going to change this. Okay. I'm going to leave that just the way it is. All right. So now I should, in a moment here, there you go. It costs $5 and I have a quantity of 10. Now this doesn't look good at all. I can clean it up a little bit. So in just a few seconds, we're going to do some math on this. So I'm going to say, all I did right there is wrap it inside a div. That's all I did. So now that it's wrapped inside a div, I could go back to my CSS and I can add some cool stuff to it. No, I'm not going to do that for right now. But I do want to put something that is the answer. So we're going to make a new div. Class is going to be answer. So far we are doing nothing different than we've done before. Answer goes here. Okay, great. And now I'm going to pull up my CSS and I'm going to say class answer. Well, this is going to be pretty cool. So I want answer to be font size 50px and I want the color to be blue. Great. And so now I have answer goes there. Okay, I'm going to delete this. So there's actually no answer anymore. So there is a div that exists right here called answer. We just can't see it. If I were to inspect this, come on, browser, you could do it. Look at that. Computer freezes up only while doing a live training. There it goes. So if I were to look at this here, the div is here. It absolutely exists and it's font size 50 and color blue, but there's nothing in it. So it's not going to actually show. No big deal. I could add a width and a height, and guess what? It's going to show up. No, it's not. I lied. Well, look at that. Jamie must be messing with my computer from afar. Jamie's in this class and she works with me. So there we go. So now you see a big red box. It's because I told it to be a certain height, told it to be a certain width, and I wanted to give it a border, but there's still nothing inside of it. But we're going to leave it like that. Okay, JavaScript. Are we ready? So JavaScript, it is a programming language. It's a lot of fun. It can do a lot of stuff. And we're going to learn a little bit about it right now. So in order to get JavaScript, I have to do another one of those things where I include some files. So I can go way up here at the top. You don't need to memorize that. You just need to know that you're going to have to do something. So this right here, it says, listen, we're going to write some JavaScript. I'm putting in this file called NCLGISA.js. And then I'm also doing this right here. And this, a little hard to explain, but this is jQuery. It's basically going to make things easier. That's all it's going to do. It's going to make things easier. Okay. So now I have my JavaScript file right here. So this is another one of those assumptions. You don't really have to know what it is. You just have to know that it's there. And it does stuff. It basically allows you to do that work. So I'm going to open up our console. So this right here is JavaScript output. For instance, if I were to, this is simple algebra from high school. I say var x is equal to 90. And then I write console log x. So x is 90, console log is just, it's our way of essentially printing it. It's going to show up right here. So I'm going to save this and refresh this page, and we have 90 there. So this is sort of a way to output stuff just to help you learn. So if I were to write y is equal to 100, and then output x and then y, it's going to put those numbers out there as soon as this decides to load because it's going slow. So basically what I'm telling you is this is where you can do some programming. So we've only got 10 minutes. I want to get through this next little bit so you can see how this relates to each other. So the first thing that I need to do is I'm going to write this command here. Sorry, I didn't have that size perfectly. Math. Okay. So quantity, I'm going to give an ID of equal QTY. And this command right here says, listen, whenever a key is touched inside of this box of quantity, I want you to do some math on it. So this right here has an ID of quantity, which is this box right here. Whenever you type something in here, we got to do some math. Now I've got to put in, I have to write this or else it'll cause an error, but there's nothing in it yet. Okay, refresh the page, nothing's going to happen. So you can see what's happening. I'm going to add something different. This is a little tricky, and you don't need to memorize it. But what I'm saying is when something is in this field and they key up, the keyboard goes down and then up, I want you just to spit out what they wrote in there. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to type in here 3, 4. So you see right here, this command right here is capturing the input, and then you can do whatever you want with it. So this right here it's a little tough to understand, and you'll learn it more as you go. So what you need to know right now is if you need to copy this and you're going to do it on your own website, you just need to know that this right here means something, and this right here means something, and then I want to do stuff with it. So we're getting real short on time. And so guys, I'm not sure if I should try to rush through this and show the end of it. Or if we should stop and do some questions, because what I really wanted to show you, and I'll put it in, I guess. So I'm going to talk through it fast just so you can see what it is. So when the key comes up in this field, I want you to execute this function. Well, this function does a couple things. It puts whatever the value of quantity is, this one. It takes whatever the price is, this one, which I need to label, right? ID is equal to price. And then basic math, quantity times price. And I did answer. I did total in my other one. So I'm saying, hey, listen, go out and get whatever is in this field to whatever's in this field, multiply them together, and take that answer, which is total right here, this total, and put it out inside the answer div right there. Okay. So, oh, look at that error. All right. So what we're saying is JS price is not defined. Aha. I just had the wrong variable. Okay. So as I backspace, it counts it in real time. 2, 2, 3. As you're doing stuff in real time, it is doing the math on those elements. And I hope this wasn't a little too confusing. I mean, what I really want you to understand is that we've got 2 inputs that we're getting from. We're doing math, and then we're going to spit them right back out. So I'm going to take the next 60 seconds to show you just a couple neat things of how JavaScript can enhance some stuff. So this is a program that I'm working on for the city. And I want to, hey, look at that. Look at that picture. Let me rotate that. So this is JavaScript. I wrote a little JavaScript to rotate that. If you want to send this person a message and you click this, so anytime you see something open, toggle up, down, this is all JavaScript that's doing that. Another really neat example of that in my last 30 seconds here. So on this page here that I wrote, I'm giving people the opportunity to update stuff. So here it comes. Oh, I clicked on the wrong one. Here we go. Look at that. I already should have had it loaded already, right? There it goes. So this is JavaScript. When you want to edit this paragraph, you hit this little pencil. You see the pencil doesn't show up until you're on it. This is JavaScript. This saving it is JavaScript. If I want to add a new element, this is JavaScript. So anytime you're interacting with a page and it seems to be moving in real time, that's JavaScript. And all of this was literally this stuff right here, just a few hundred lines of it. But it's the same concept. Same concept. When you click on something, I want you to do something else. That's it. I was trying to leave a little bit more room for questions, but if you have questions, please send them in. I love doing this stuff. I love teaching this stuff. There's your basic introduction to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And so now I'm going to, while we're sort of doing that, I'm going to, if you guys are asking questions, I'm going to add a couple things here. That's pretty cool. So I want kids to be hidden. All right, so now my kids are hidden. They're gone. And I'm going to add this really cool piece of JavaScript right here that says when you click on family, class with family, I want you to find all the kids that exist and I want you to show them. So let's get rid of that. Man, bandwidth is being eaten up. Look at this. Too intense. There we go. Look at that. Didn't work. Click family. Because I hid kids, not. There we go. Nope. All righty. There, my typo's not working, I guess. Missing something. That's what happens to try to rush. Sorry about that. Cool. Well, I appreciate you. Appreciate some of those nice comments. Thank you. And why is that not working? Cool. I'm glad. I like doing teaching. I think we should definitely have a few more hands-on type learning type classes here. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys. I'm gonna stay around for a little bit. Try to figure out why my code is not working.
So Darren, John did ask if is the recording available after the presentation?
Yes, so all of these are being recorded, and we were told in about 48 hours after the conference ends, when you go back to the into the auditorium, which is here, you go in here, what we were told was that you should see some option around here that says view recording. So that should be how you get access to the recordings afterwards. But it works. So now see this, as you click on this, the names appear. So there's all sorts of neat things you can do with JavaScript. Yep, it'll be recorded. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate the, thank you guys. Go back, visit our vendor booths, win some prizes. Trivia night tonight. I'm hosting trivia night. We've got a couple hundred, well, a little over 100 questions of some fun trivia. There will be prizes. We're going to be giving away some gift cards. You absolutely can win. It's at 6:30 tonight. You can have a beer with you. It is perfectly acceptable. I am sure that I will have, yeah, I'll have a beer with me. Maybe. Might look like ginger ale. But please come back, enjoy the trivia. Hope you enjoyed this. I did not give you guys my email. You should be able to find it on the stuff, but it is so. Get in touch with me if you'd like, and that's all, guys. 4 o'clock. Please visit. Enjoy. I'll stay in here. If any more questions come in, they're actual questions, I'll be happy to answer it. And that's it.